Hey everyone, welcome to our Blender Beginner series. So this whole series is broken up into 6 different chapters. So in chapter 1, we'll look at how to do all the modeling, so taking basic primitive shapes inside Blender and creating more complex 3D assets. And then chapter 2, we'll have a look at how to UV unwrap all of our models so that we can take it into texturing, which we'll cover in chapter 3. Then chapter 4, we'll look at our lighting and our cameras before we start looking at some surface imperfections. And then finally, we'll do rendering and compositing. So there are some resources that you need to download to be able to follow along. So if you click the link in the description of the video, you will find all the reference images we use to actually model everything. There's also a file of all the custom decals I've created that you can use inside the scene, and there's also an ebook that talks through the whole process as well, so you can either follow along to the videos or you can follow along to the ebook as well. It covers the same things. If you've got any questions about anything as you're going through it, leave a comment in the video that you're struggling with, and I'll get back to you. Hello everyone, welcome back to our Blender Beginner series. So we have just finished modeling everything we want inside our scene. So this is now the start of chapter 2, which is to do our texturing side of things. Now before we can start to texture everything, what we need to do is something called UV unwrapping, which essentially is you're going to tell Blender how you want the materials to be applied to your model. So just to give you an idea of why we need to do that. So if I were to take, say, the helmet, I'm going to open, so on the top left here, if I come over to the end of the window and you get this little crosshair appears, I can then just drag this window across so I can get another window. On this little drop down here, I can come down here and I can go to shader editor. Now, if you have this little menu here, you can press N and it'll get rid of that menu there. So if I have this selected, and on the properties panel on the right hand side, come down to the bottom where it says material and click on new. Now the nodes appear here. Now we will go all into what nodes do as we get through this chapter. Now we just want to add something in there so we can see what's going to happen. Okay, so at the minute we have our material output, which is always what's like how the material will actually be applied, and then we have this what's called the principal BSDF. As I said, we'll go into that in more detail in upcoming videos. So for now, much like when you're modeling, Shift A is how you add anything, and you can just start typing in what you want. So I want an image texture. So I'm going to take this image texture node here and just click anywhere to drop it like that. Now I'm going to take this color, and if I drag out with my left mouse button, I get this wire, and I can just plug this color right into the base color like that. I'm going to click on new, and I'm going to change generated type to color grid and just click on new image. Now at the minute it looks like nothing happened because at the minute we're still in viewport shading. Okay, the third one along is material preview. So if you click on there, you'll see what's going on is we've got some weird distortion on our thing. So what we're looking for is perfect squares everywhere, which we've got okay here, but actually we haven't got control over it along here. So what we need to do is tell Blender how we want to lay out the material, and we do that with UV. So I'm just going to undo all of that, come back to preview, and what we'll do is we'll start with our table. So I'm going to click on the tabletop and press / just to isolate it. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to have my other window open, and I'm currently in the shader editor. I'm going to come over to the UV editor here. Now, as you model things, it does automatically generate a set of UVs, which are, because we've originally took a cube and we've edited it, it's got the UVs of a cube. So that's now wrong. So we're going to go tab to go to edit mode. And what we're going to do is start selecting edges. Okay. So what we want, and I've just seen here, I've accidentally still got 2, 3, 4. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I just need to join that up. So that's quads, which I'm assuming means I've got to do the same in this corner over here, and probably over here as well. So I forgot to do those before. So we'll just do that now. Like that. So this is where having all those quads set up makes your life infinitely easier. So we want to start grabbing edges. So I'm going to press 2 to go to edge mode, holding down Alt and just click on this edge. And this edge is going to go all the way around like that. So you got to think about, you want this to be able to lay out flat. So it's at the minute it's a 3D shape, but you want to be able to lay it out 2D. Now I imagine it's like a cereal box or like a tissue box, something like that, and you can just fold that outwards. Obviously some things are more complex than others to do, but we'll cover everything as we're doing it in here. So with this edge selected, what I can do is right click, and here it says mark seam. And what's going to happen, it's going to turn that whole seam red, and that's going to unwrap. Now, as you unwrap it, I'm going to go to 3, to go to face mode, A to select all, U and unwrap and go to minimal stretch. Now, because we've not done enough seams here, we've got all this distortion. And again, I'm going to add material so you can see what's going on. Shader editor. Let's add that image texture so you can see. And change that to color grid. So you see we've got all these sorts of weird distortion going on, which doesn't look very good. And that's the sort of thing we're trying to avoid. Okay. So we've got one seam there. I'm going back to UV editor. So we need to add some more seams on it. Okay, so what we're going to do is grab the bottom along here as well. Grab that seam. Go along and make sure it's going over where it needs to be. Right click and mark seam like that. We're also going to want to make sure we grab along the edges along here. We don't need that bit. So sometimes you do need to deselect as you're doing it. So I'm going to come along and grab these, mark seam like that. So this line here, again, I'm going to deselect along there. Right click and mark seam. So this one now will unfold flat. So I'm going to select all and unwrap. So you see here, if I come out of material preview, that some of it is now laying flat. So I'll move it here so it's a bit easier to see. And some of it isn't. Okay. So this one, for example, is now fine. So you can see here that this one's a separate piece. Okay. So that's fine. We still need to be able to do the other parts as well. So we're going to come along, and because this is one big loop, we need to have some cuts in it to be able to go all the way around. So let's grab these edges along here, and right click and mark seam. I'm going to unwrap that again. Drag that over. So you can see at the minute that's what it currently looks like. Now I clearly pressed the wrong button when I did that, so I'm going to right click, mark seam, and do that again. Okay, there we go. So here you can see that that's now separate. The problem is that's also quite long, and you want to avoid massive long UV islands if you can do. So we're just going to add another couple of cuts along here as well. Like that, right click and mark seam. So we've got that along there. I'm going to do along the bottom here. So let's do the same thing. So we're going to grab seam along here. We'll grab this seam along here. So normally, once you get experienced, my advice is that you sort of like add your seams as you're modeling it, because it does make it a little bit faster, a little bit easier to do it as you're sort of doing it, but it's not a big deal to do it afterwards. It's sort of down to personal preference, really. Grab these seams along here. You just want to make sure, because not all edges will continue all the way around. So for example, the top one all the way along, but this one did not. So you want to just make sure you're getting it all. Let's grab the corners. Again, deselect the bits that we don't want to be a seam. Right click, mark seam. So we've got those. So we'll keep unwrapping just to show you what's going on. I'll bring that over here. You see now, we're starting to get some separate pieces like this. So all these are now starting to become separate parts, which is what we want. Like that. Now we do still have some bits that we have not yet unwrapped correctly. So this one here, and you see it highlights which ones have not been done correctly, and that's because here we've obviously still got our draw, which we need to do. So what we can do, tab, go back to 2, to grab edge mode. Let's grab the edges along here. Deselect some of these edges. Mark seam, and then we'll move over to the draw. Deselect the edges we don't want. Right click and mark seam. Now if we unwrap all of that, bring it over, you see that everything is now unwrapped. We can check that's all looking right. So if we then come back to material preview with our thing selected, you see that we've now got everything in quads. We've got a little bit of distortion going on here, so we can come up here. And what we can do is just straighten that out by, if we select to go to edge mode, select that, we can right click and we can straighten, we can, sorry, auto align. Auto align like that. Then if we select that face, Control L select all, and follow back to quad, it then straightens out all of our quads like that. So we've got everything as nice, neat squares. We've got a little bit of distortion going on this one as well. Let's grab that. Bring it over. So we'll do the same thing, grab the edge, auto align, like that, and then Control L to select all of it, and then follow up to quads. And again, that'll straighten out all those as well. So there's two things to look out for. One, that it is still all squares, and that you've not got any strange distortion going on. Okay, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to make sure that all the squares are the same size. Okay, so I'm going to unisolate that. So what I tend to do is, once I've unwrapped one thing, I will always add this material for the grid. I'll then hide that one and then move on to the next pieces. So let's do that. So I'm going to save this, move on to the leg. Now I'm actually only going to do one of these legs, because then I'll just mirror it all over again. So you don't need to redo every single thing. Much like with the paint cans, I'll do one and then reduplicate them. Same with the pens and so on. Is you can just do it once and then use that over and over again. So let's grab this one. Now this is a nice easy one to do. So all we're going to do is grab it. I'm mainly going for the ones in the middle here. So grab those like that. Come to the bottom and grab all of these. This is where doing it as you're going does get a bit easier. Right click and mark seam. We want to see how that looks. So select all, U, and unwrap. And you see there we've now unwrapped our leg. What we're going to do is unisolate it, add new material, Shift A, image texture, plug the color into there, new, and grab that color grid again. And you can see that that's now set up as well. So if we were to unhide our table, so here's what we want to do, is make sure that the grid sizes are the same sort of thing. Now, because they're not, what we can do is come back to the UV editor. We can go to edit. We can select those and drag S and scale to make those a bit bigger as well. So you can make them bigger or smaller as you need it to make sure you're getting the same sort of textile density. So something like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate that. So origin is there, so we're going to delete this leg. Shift D to duplicate, right click, mirror, going Y like that. Now remember, when we do that, it goes inside out. So what we're going to do is select all, 3, A to select all, and Shift N to recalculate normals. But then we bring the material preview on, we see it's already been unwrapped for us, which is exactly what we want. We're going to do the same with these two. So we're going to get rid of these two legs, delete them. Let's grab these two, Shift D, mirror along Y. Oh no, sorry, mirror along X like that. And then let's just double check that they've not gone the wrong way around. So face orientation. And what you may need to do is Control A to apply all transforms. And you see it's gone inside out. So tab 3A, Shift N to recalculate like that. So then you see how quickly you can start to build it up as you're doing it. So what we're going to do is let's hide, excuse me, our legs. Let's then grab this part of our table. Let's grab these edges again. Again, this is nice and easy. We're going to grab the lines that are all in the middle, like that. Right click, mark seam, and isolate. And rather than add in, so we can unhide that material over and over again, what we can do is select that first one, select the one that's already got that material, Control L, and link those materials like that. But we haven't unwrapped that yet, so let's tab 3A U and then unwrap. And you see we've no longer got that distortion. We need to make that scale a bit bigger. So I'm going to scale it a little bit, make it like that sort of thing. Change that to minimal stretch just so we don't get a little bit of distortion we had going on a little bit. Something like that. Okay, so that table is now done. I can leave that as save. And then we're going to hide all those again. Let's then move on to our chair. So we'll grab the legs of the chair, / to isolate it all. So this one here, we're going to make sure we grab the edges around our holes. And because it's cylindrical, we need to make sure, I struggle to say cylindrical there, grab this, otherwise you can't unwrap a cylinder. I'm going to do the same here as well. Like that. Just holding down Shift and clicking where you want your seams to be. They don't necessarily need to be exactly where I'm putting them as well. There are multiple different ways of unwrapping if you need to. We're going to mark seam there. Now, we don't want this to be one really, really long UV, okay? So the easy way of doing this, need to make sure we grab along here as well. Is you could just grab an edge like that, and it's going to go all the way around like that, and you can right click and mark seam, and we can grab it all and unwrap, but you end up with one very, very long UV, which we don't want. So you see we've got our holes, which are all fine there. So that's where it's probably worth adding in a few additional seams, just so it's not so long. And then what I'll probably do is let's do it on the corners. Like that, I'll do there and there. mark seam, 3AU, like that. And you see that now we've not got one really long one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 slightly smaller ones, which is what we want. So unisolate, we've got that. Let's move on to, moving that down a little bit, our seat here. I'm going to isolate that. I'm going to grab these edges along here. Like that. We'll grab this edge along here. We don't need to select this one. So we'll just deselect like that. And it's probably worth us grabbing all 4 corners. So let's just go along here. We don't want the top and the bottom bit done. So we got that, and then we drop this corner we haven't done. Again, all I'm doing is I'm holding down Shift and Alt, and then holding down Shift and then deselecting the ones I don't want. Right click and mark seam. 3 to go to face mode, edge select all, U, and unwrap, enable stretch. So you see we've got that along there. Bring that back. This one, that's a flat face. You still need to unwrap it, but you don't need to select anything because it is a perfectly flat shape. There is no 3D to it, so you can literally just do that nice and easy. We'll do the same to the backrest. Again, just grab in the middle and deselect these parts like that. You're probably seeing now why I said once you get more experience doing it as you're going along, makes a lot more sense as you start to get a little bit faster, a little bit more confident in what you're doing. Right click and mark seam. 3D face mode, A, U, and we'll go minimal stretch. So we've got that. Let's grab our chair, isolate it, 3A, U, minimal stretch. Again, like with the bottom piece, we don't need to do anything more than that. Let's do our bolt, shade flat so we can see it a bit better. So here, let's just grab these edges along here. Like that, and then we'll just grab this edge. Right click, mark seam. Like that. Now we could just duplicate and put that along, but while we're doing it, I'll just quickly. Now we've clearly still got a subdivision on here, so I'm just going to remove that as I'm going along. If I find any models that have got subdivisions on while I'm unwrapping, I will remove them just temporarily because it makes it a little bit easier to do. Right click and mark seam. Like that, and then only thing we've got left to finish on our chair is these bits here. Grab these edges along here. Like that. Right click and mark seam. like that. So that should now be our chair completely unwrapped. We'll do our pillow at the same time. Let's just, I think our pillow has moved slightly. Oh no, it hasn't. So with the pillow, funnily enough, actually, it makes more sense to unwrap this before you do your cloth simulation. I'm going to shade flat so we can see it a bit better, because it's a bit easier to grab the edges, okay? But because we haven't done a massively detailed one, we can just grab all along the outside there is fine. And then what we'll do is let's just grab these corners here. Mark seam, and then we're going to unwrap the windmill stretch. So there we've got our cushion. Bring it all back. So that's everything for our chair done. Let's just bring back this table so that we can apply the same material. So we're going to select our chair frame, select the leg or anything like that. Control L to link material. So it's got the same material on there. We're going to do the same for all of these. So you can select multiple at the same time. So holding down Shift and then selecting all of those, then selecting the one with the materials you want. Control L to link materials like that. Now we want to sort out the scale a little bit. I'm going to turn off face orientation just because it's a little bit distracting, like that, so we can see what's going on. So let's grab this UV here, A, and it needs to be a little bit bigger. So we're going to A and scale it a bit smaller, like that. Just scale so the cubes are close. If it's not exactly the same, it's not the end of the world. We're just trying to get as close as we can do. Because you may well end up updating this as you start applying your materials as well. So it's for now just trying to get a good idea of how it's all going to sit, how it's all going to look. Like that. So you see here, really small. That means we're going to have way too much resolution on those, which we don't want. So that's what we want to avoid. So that definitely needs to be scaled considerably smaller. As I said, some of those aren't going to get seen very much. Same with the screw up here, or the cap, sorry. You're not going to see a huge amount of it. I just want to make sure I'm not getting too much resolution on there. Oh, no, I'm not just getting the model there. Press S when you are in the UV editor so that you can scale the UVs, not the actual model like I just did. Like that. Okay, like that. So we've got our table and chair unwrapped. I'm going to spread this over a couple of different videos because otherwise I think it'd be one quite long video. And I did originally think about, like, I'll show you a couple of unwrapping like models, but then you do it yourself. But actually what I'll do is I'll unwrap them on the video with you so that if there's anything that gets tricky, you can sort of like follow along. So I'm probably going to go over probably three videos. So we'll stop there and then we will carry on unwrapping in the next video. So let me give this a save and then I'll see you in the next part to carry on unwrapping.